The fires had been burning for 3 days. Admiral stood on the bridge of his flagship, the Eternal Soul, and watched the rescue footage on the main screen. The planet below him was new, humanity's largest colony world. It had been home to 40 million people. Now it was a graveyard. Did not move, he did not speak. His officers worked quietly around him, afraid to break the silence. They had all seen the footage many times now, warships descending from the sky, plasma bombs falling on cities, schools, hospitals, homes, all burning together. The screams had stopped playing hours ago because someone had turned off the audio. Nobody could listen anymore. Captain Park walked up to stand beside him. She was young for her rank, only 32 years old, but she had earned her position through skill and courage. Right now, her face showed the same empty expression as everyone else on the bridge. "Sir," she said quietly, "the final count is in. 43 million dead, 7 million still missing. The other 2 colonies report similar numbers." Nodded slowly. 3 colony worlds attacked in a single day. Over 100 million humans killed. The largest massacre in the history of their species, and the galaxy called it an incident. "My daughter was on new," said. His voice was flat without emotion. "She was a teacher, 3rd grade. She loved her students." Closed her eyes briefly. "I'm sorry, Admiral." "Don't be sorry yet." Finally turned away from the screen. His eyes were hard like stone. "The Galactic Council has summoned our representative. They want to discuss what happened." "Discuss?" His voice held a note of anger. "The murdered 100 million of our people. What is there to discuss?" "That is exactly what I want to find out." On Earth, in a small office in Seoul, Councilwoman prepared for the most important journey of her life. She was 60 years old, with gray hair and tired eyes, but her mind was still sharp. She had represented humanity in the Galactic Council for 15 years. She had smiled at aliens who looked down on her species. She had accepted insults with grace. She had played their political games. But not today. Today was different. A knock came at her door. Doctor entered without waiting for an answer. He was a thin man with glasses and messy hair, the kind of person who forgot to eat when he was working on a problem. He was also the most brilliant weapons engineer humanity had ever produced. "Councilwoman," he said, holding out a small data chip, "I need you to take this with you." Looked at the chip. "What is it?" "Insurance." Eyes were serious behind his glasses. "The Council will try to bury this. They will blame us somehow. They always protect the powerful species. If that happens, I want you to show them what humanity has been building in secret." Took the chip and held it in her palm. It was so small, so light. "Is this legal?" "No, we violated about a dozen galactic treaties," smiled, but there was no humor in it. "They restricted us from developing certain technologies. They said we were too young, too dangerous, too primitive. So we smiled and agreed, and then we built everything anyway. Hidden shipyards, secret research stations, weapons they have never seen." "Why are you telling me this?" "Because if they refuse us justice, I want them to know what they're dealing with. Humans are not sheep to be slaughtered. We are wolves who learn to hide our teeth." Put the chip in her pocket. "Let's hope I don't need to use it." The journey to the council station took 5 days. Traveled alone on a diplomatic vessel, surrounded by stars and silence. She used the time to prepare her arguments. Surely the council would see reason. The had attacked without warning. They had targeted civilians. There were recordings, evidence, witnesses. Justice would prevail. But when she arrived at the council station, she understood immediately that she had been naive. The council chamber was vast, a great dome filled with representatives from 40 different species. They sat in floating platforms arranged in a circle, all facing the center where speakers addressed the assembly. The ceiling showed the stars of 1,000 worlds. It was meant to inspire feelings of unity and peace. Too, it felt like a tomb. High Arbiter presided over the assembly. He was a tall creature with blue-gray skin and 4 arms, an ancient species that had ruled the galaxy for. His voice filled the chamber like thunder when he spoke. This tribunal will now address the incident in human space. Councilwoman, you may approach. Walked to the center platform. She felt 100 alien eyes watching her. Some were curious, some were hostile, a few showed something like pity. High Arbiter, she began. 3 days ago, the Dominion launched an unprovoked attack on 3 human colony worlds. Over 100 million of my people were killed. We come seeking justice and— The Council has already reviewed the evidence, interrupted. His 4 arms folded across his chest. We have reached a conclusion. Stopped already, but we have witnesses who need to testify. We have recordings of commanders ordering attacks on schools and hospitals. We have. The Council has determined that the attacks were provoked. His voice allowed no argument. Human colonies were expanding into contested space. They responded to defend their territorial claims. While the loss of life is regrettable, the humans bear significant responsibility. The chamber murmured with approval from some sections, discomfort from others. Stood frozen. She could not believe what she was hearing. Furthermore, continued, to prevent future conflict, the Council orders the following. First, humanity will surrender all claims to the 3 attacked colonies. Second, humanity will pay reparations to the Dominion for their military expenditures. Third, humanity will reduce their military fleet by 70%. Found her voice. You want us to pay the people who murdered our children. The decision is final. Looked down at her like she was a small animal that had wandered into the wrong room. Humanity is a young species. You do not understand how the galaxy works. Accept these terms and be grateful for peace. Something changed in his eyes. The tired old diplomat was gone. In her place stood something else entirely. You want peace? She asked. Her voice was calm, almost quiet. Then you should have stopped the ships that burned our children alive. She reached into her pocket and pulled out the data chip. With a single motion, she inserted it into the speaking platform. Holographic images exploded across the chamber. Warship designs unlike anything the Council had seen. Weapons that bent the laws of physics. Fleet numbers that should have been impossible. This is what humanity builds when we are afraid, said, her voice carrying through the stunned silence. You have spent 60 years calling us primitive. You have spent 60 years treating us like insects. And in that time we have been preparing, not for conquest, for survival. She looked directly at High Arbiter. You wanted us to be afraid of you. Congratulations. Now you get to find out what we do when we're angry. Walked out of the chamber. Behind her, the galaxy held its breath. The age of human submission was over. What came next would change everything. The World Council of Earth met in Seoul 3 days after walked out of the Galactic Assembly. Every nation had sent their leaders. Every military commander was present. The room was full of the most powerful humans alive, and they were arguing. We cannot fight the entire galaxy. Prime Minister of Europe slammed his hand on the table. The Council has 40 species. They have thousands of warships. They have technology we cannot match. This is suicide. Then we die on our feet instead of our knees, General Lee responded. He was an old soldier with scars on his face and fire in his eyes. He had commanded the defense of Nu before the attack. He had watched the planet burn while his soldiers fought to save civilians. I will not tell the families of the dead that we surrendered to their killers. Nobody is talking about surrender, Chancellor of the Asian Federation said carefully. We are talking about survival. Perhaps we can negotiate. Perhaps we can find allies who— Allies? Councilwoman stood up. She had returned from the council station that morning and she had not slept since. I spent 15 years building relationships with other species. I smiled at their jokes. I accepted their insults. I played their games. And when our children were murdered, they told us to pay for the bullets. The room fell silent. There are no allies, continued. There is only power, and for 60 years we showed them weakness. We were humble, we were patient, we were good, and they decided we were prey. Admiral had been silent until now. He sat in the corner of the room, watching the debate without expression. But when finished speaking, he rose from his chair. "May I address the council?" he asked. The room turned to look at him. Everyone knew who he was. Everyone knew what he had lost. "Admiral," Chancellor said, "we value your military expertise, but this is a political decision. I am not here to discuss politics. Walk to the front of the room. I am here to show you something." He pressed a button on his wrist device. The main screen lit up with footage. The council members watched in horror as images played. A soldier laughing while he set fire to a school. Children running through flames. A mother using her own body to shield her baby from plasma fire. The baby did not survive. Neither did the mother. "This is what they did to us," said quietly. "This is what the galaxy called provoked. This is what the council said we must pay reparations for." The footage continued. An old man begging for mercy before being shot. A hospital collapsing. Refugees drowning as they tried to escape on overcrowded boats. Some of the council members turned away. Others cried. "The council wants us to reduce our fleet by 70%, continued. "They want us defenseless. They want to make sure that the next time someone decides to burn our worlds, we cannot fight back." He turned off the footage and faced the room. "I cannot make you choose war. I cannot force you to fight, but I can tell you this." His voice was steady as stone. "My fleet will fly whether you authorize it or not. Some of us still remember what it means to be human." The room was silent for a long moment. Then Chancellor stood up. "Call the vote." One by one, every leader pressed their button. The holographic display showed the results in real time. Yes, 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 no, yes, yes. The numbers climbed higher and higher. When the final vote was counted, it was unanimous. Earth chose retaliation. Within hours, the planet transformed. Hidden shipyards in the asteroid belt came online. Secret factories beneath the oceans began producing weapons. Soldiers who had been farming and building and raising families put on uniforms again. Doctor revealed the full scope of what humanity had built. In a massive underground facility, he showed Admiral and General Lee the fruits of decades of secret work. "The Council restricted us from developing certain technologies," explained as they walked past rows of warships. "Faster-than-light missiles, quantum disruption fields, self-replicating defense drones. They said these weapons were too dangerous for young species." "But we built them anyway," said, looking at a torpedo that could destroy a moon. "We built them better," smiled grimly. "You see, they thought we were primitive because we fight each other. They saw our history of war and decided we were violent animals. But they missed something important. War made us very, very good at building weapons." General Lee examined a suit of power armor that could punch through steel. "How many of these do we have?" 50,000 ready now. We can produce 1,000 more per week." "And the ships?" 200 heavy warships, 50 carriers, 3,000 fighters, and one special project I've been saving." Led them to a massive hangar. In the center sat a ship unlike anything they had seen. It was sleek and black, covered in panels that seemed to absorb light. "This is the Shadow," said proudly. "It can become completely invisible to all known sensors. It carries weapons that exist on the edge of physics, and it is completely undetectable." Admiral walked around the ship slowly. "One ship will not win a war." "No, but it can win battles that matter, and I have something else." Pulled up a holographic display. "We have an agent inside the council station. Lieutenant. She's been embedded as a translator for 2 years. She's been sending us intelligence the whole time." The display showed a young woman's face. Looked ordinary enough to be invisible, which was exactly what made her perfect for the job. "According to, the fleet is scattered and overconfident. They never expected us to fight back. More importantly, several council species are privately horrified by the ruling. The ambassador has made contact. She wants to help. Help how? General Lee asked suspiciously. She believes the council has become corrupt. She thinks what happened to us is wrong, and she's not alone. There are cracks in their unity. We can exploit them. Admiral was silent for a moment, processing everything. Then he nodded. We start with the supply depot at station. It feeds their entire occupation of our space. If we destroy it, their forces in our territory will be cut off. I have just the captain for the job, General Lee said. Park. She's young, but she's the best tactical mind in the fleet. Captain Park received her orders that evening. She was given command of the warship Defiance and a strike group of 12 ships. Her mission was simple: hit, send a message, come home alive. She stood on the bridge of the Defiance as her crew prepared for departure. 12 ships against a station defended by 40. The odds were not in their favor. But smiled as she looked at her console. They had never seen human ships fight. They did not know what they were dealing with. All ships report ready, her first officer announced. Good, leaned back in her command chair. Set course for maximum speed. As the fleet prepared to jump to hyperspace, Admiral's voice came through the speakers of every ship. His words were simple, but they burned into the heart of every soldier who heard them. No mercy, no retreat. Make them remember this day forever. The stars stretched and twisted as the human fleet vanished into hyperspace. They were outnumbered and facing an enemy that had ruled the stars for centuries. They were also angry, and the galaxy was about to learn why that mattered. The strike group emerged from hyperspace in perfect formation. 12 human warships hung against the black void, their hulls gleaming under distant starlight. Ahead of them, station waited. Captain Park studied the tactical display on her screen. The station was massive, a rotating wheel of metal and light that stretched for miles. It was the main supply hub for all operations in human space. Every weapon, every soldier, every ship depended on, and it was defended by 40 warships. Enemy contacts confirmed, her sensor officer reported. 42 hostile vessels, 18 heavy cruisers, 24 destroyers. They're moving to intercept. First officer, a young man named, looked worried. Captain, we're outnumbered almost 4-1. I know, smiled. It was not a friendly smile. They don't know what human ships can do. Let's educate them. The fleet moved toward them in a traditional formation. Their ships were large and intimidating, covered in spikes and weapons. They had conquered 100 worlds with these vessels. They expected the small human ships to flee or die quickly. They were wrong. All ships execute pattern Delta, commanded. On my mark. The human fleet suddenly scattered in 12 different directions. Though expecting a direct engagement, hesitated for a crucial moment. Then the human ships did something impossible. They jumped. Not into hyperspace, but through small micro-jumps that covered only a few thousand kilometers. In the blink of an eye, the human ships reappeared behind the formation. Before they could react, 12 human vessels opened fire at once. Missiles streaked through space. Energy beams sliced through shields. 2 destroyers exploded in balls of flame before they could even turn around. They're trying to regroup, reported. The heavy cruisers are forming a defensive line. Not for long, pattern echo, now. The human ships scattered again, jumping in unpredictable patterns. Every time they tried to target them, they vanished. Every time they reappeared, another ship died. On the flagship, Commander watched the battle with growing fury. His species had ruled this sector for 3,000 years. They had crushed 100 rebellions, and now these primitive humans were making fools of his fleet. How are they doing that? He demanded. Our sensors cannot track their movements. Unknown, Commander, his officer replied nervously. Their technology appears to exceed our intelligence reports. then destroy them the old way. All ships advance at full power, overwhelm them with numbers. The fleet charged forward. It was a strategy that had worked for. When in doubt, use superior numbers to crush the enemy. Against any normal opponent, it would have worked. But Captain Park was not normal. "They're coming straight at us," said all 40 remaining ships. "Perfect," pressed a button on her console. "All ships execute pattern Omega and prepare the special package." The human ships regrouped into a tight formation. The fleet bore down on them, weapons charging. Commander smiled. Finally, the humans were making a mistake. In close combat, his superior numbers would destroy them. Then the Defiance launched something new. The torpedo was small, almost invisible against the black of space. It moved slowly at first, then accelerated to impossible speeds. The flagship's shields were the strongest in the fleet. They had withstood bombardments that could crack moons. The quantum disruptor torpedo passed through them like they were not there. The effect was instant and terrible. The flagship's power core, a miniature star contained by magnetic fields, suddenly found those fields disrupted. For one brief moment, the core was exposed to normal space. Then it collapsed. The implosion pulled the flagship apart from the inside. Metal twisted. Hulls cracked. Commander had one moment to scream before the void took him. The flagship became a cloud of debris, and that debris rained down on the ships around it. 3 more cruisers were destroyed by the shrapnel. 2 others were crippled. The remaining ships scattered in panic. "Status report," commanded. 18 enemy ships destroyed, 14 damaged, remaining vessels retreating to the station. His voice held a note of awe. "We lost 1 fighter, no capital ships damaged." "Good, now let's finish the job." The human fleet advanced on station. The remaining ships tried to form a defensive line, but their morale was broken. They had watched their flagship disappear in an instant. They had seen human ships dance through space like ghosts. Some of them began to surrender. While the space battle raged, General Lee led a different kind of assault. His marine transports had used the chaos to approach the station undetected. Now, 1,000 human soldiers in power armor smashed through the station's docking bays. The warriors inside were confident at first. They were twice the size of humans. They were stronger, faster, and bred for combat. They had never lost a ground battle. Was the first through the breach. A warrior swung a massive blade at his head, ducked under it, stepped inside the alien's guard, and fired his weapon point-blank into its chest. The fell, before its body hit the ground, had killed 2 more. His soldiers poured in behind him. They moved like water flowing through corridors and overwhelming defenders. Human tactics were different from anything they had seen. They used grenades around corners. They coordinated attacks through silent signals. They never stopped moving, never gave the enemy time to think. A commander tried to rally his troops in the central hub. "Stand and fight," he roared. "They are small and weak. We are warriors." Appeared behind him. The commander turned just in time to see the blade coming. He was dead before he understood what had happened. "Clear the sector," ordered calmly. "Move to engineering." The fighting was brutal but brief. Every time they tried to form a defensive position, human soldiers found another way around. They came through air vents, through maintenance tunnels, through holes they blasted in the walls. They fought with a ferocity that went beyond training. These were people who had lost families on Nu. They were not just fighting for victory. They were fighting for justice. In the station's command center, General Lee found the station commander. His name was as well, the cousin of the fleet commander who had just died. He was sitting in his chair, surrounded by dead guards, staring at the human soldiers with disbelief. "This is impossible," said. "You are primitives, you cannot defeat us." Walked toward him slowly. He removed his helmet so they could see his face. "We are not primitives, we are humans." I demand to be treated according to galactic convention. I am a noble of the Dominion. I have rights. Stopped in front of him. His face was hard. Were there conventions when you burned new? Were there rights for the children in the schools? Were there rights for the mothers protecting their bobbies? Was silent. You will live, said finally. Not because you deserve it, but because we are not like you. You will stand trial for what your people did, and the whole galaxy will watch. The station fell in 6 hours. When the final count came in, they had lost 38 ships and 4,000 soldiers. Humanity had lost 2 ships and 89 Marines. Captain Park stood on the bridge of the Defiance as the sun rose over station. The flag was gone, replaced by the blue and green of Earth. Her communications officer nodded. Channel is open, Captain. Broadcasting on all frequencies. Took a deep breath. Every species in the galaxy was about to hear her voice. This is Captain Park of the Earth vessel Defiance. To the Dominion, we are coming. Every world you hold stolen from its people, we will free. Every base you use to project your power, we will destroy. This is not vengeance. This is justice. She paused, letting the words sink in across 1,000 worlds. To the Galactic Council, stay out of our way. We asked for justice and you gave us betrayal. We asked for peace and you gave us terms of surrender. So we will find our own justice. We will make our own peace. And if anyone tries to stop us, they will share the fate of this station. She cut the transmission. The bridge was silent. Then slowly her crew began to applaud. Far away on the council station, High Arbiter watched the broadcast. His 4 hands trembled. He had made a terrible mistake. He had poked what he thought was a small, weak animal. He had woken up something far more dangerous. The Galactic Council chamber had never seen such chaos. Representatives screamed at each other across the vast dome. Accusations flew like weapons. Alliances that had stood for centuries crumbled in minutes. High Arbiter stood at his podium trying to restore order. His 4 hands waved frantically. Silence. The council will have order. But nobody was listening anymore. The ambassador slammed his fist on his platform. The humans must be destroyed. They attacked our station without provocation. They murdered our soldiers. This is an act of war against the entire Dominion. Without provocation, Ambassador of the rose to her full height. She was a slender creature with silver skin and large dark eyes. Her species was known for their calm diplomacy. But today she was angry. You burned 3 of their worlds. You killed 100 million of their people. What did you expect them to do? They were expanding into our territory. Your territory, laughed bitterly. You stole that space from the 200 years ago. You have no legitimate claim. The chamber erupted again. Some species supported the old allies who benefited from their trade. Others sided with the species who had suffered under aggression in the past. And many simply watched, uncertain which side would win. In the shadows of the observation gallery, Lieutenant watched everything. She had been embedded in the council station for 2 years, working as a translator. Nobody suspected her. She was small, quiet, and always polite, the perfect spy. She had been waiting for this moment. Her communication device vibrated, a message from Earth. She slipped out of the gallery and found a private terminal. Admiral's face appeared on the screen. Lieutenant, what's the situation? The council is fracturing, sir. At least 6 species are openly questioning the original ruling. The delegation is particularly vocal. Ambassador seems genuinely sympathetic to our cause. Can we trust her? Considered the question. I believe so, sir. They have always been uncomfortable with aggression. They joined the council for peace, not for war, sees us as victims, not aggressors. Good. I need something from you, Lieutenant. Something that will break this council apart permanently. I may already have it. Pulled up files on her device. I've been digging through council records for months. I found something last week. Financial transfers between the Dominion and High Arbiter. private communications discussing how to rule against humanity, even footage of secret meetings. Admiral's eyes widened. Was bribed. They paid him a fortune to ensure we would be blamed. The ruling was decided before the tribunal even began. It was never about justice. It was always about protecting interests. Send everything to Councilwoman, immediately. 24 hours later, stood before the Galactic Assembly once again. But this time, she was not alone. Ambassador stood beside her, along with representatives from 5 other species. They called themselves the Coalition for Justice. I have evidence, announced, that the ruling against humanity was corrupt from the beginning. She played the recordings. The chamber watched in stunned silence as and the ambassador discussed payments. They heard promise to deliver a guilty verdict no matter what evidence was presented. They saw footage of secret meetings where the two celebrated humanity's coming humiliation. When the recordings ended, spoke again. High Arbiter did not seek justice. He sought profit. They did not defend their territory. They committed genocide and paid to cover it up. And this council, this institution that claims to bring peace to the galaxy, allowed it to happen. The chamber exploded. Half the species demanded its removal. The other half scrambled to cover their own involvement. Some had known about the bribery. Some had benefited from it. The delegation stormed out, threatening war against anyone who opposed them. Tried to have arrested. This is treason, he screamed. Guards, take her into custody. But before the guards could move, the security forces stepped forward. Ambassador raised her hand. "The formally withdraw from this council," she announced. "We will provide protection for the human delegation. Any attempt to harm them will be considered an act of war against our people." 3 other species immediately announced the same. The guards hesitated. They were council forces, bound to obey the Arbiter. But if they touched the humans, they would start a war with thee and their allies. Looked around desperately. His power was crumbling. His allies were fleeing. The empire he had built through centuries of careful manipulation was falling apart in minutes. "This is not over," he hissed. "No," agreed, "it is just beginning." While the council tore itself apart, Admiral pushed deeper into space. Every world his fleet liberated told the same story. They were not just conquerors, they were monsters. On the planet Prime, human soldiers found slave camps stretching for hundreds of miles. The people, a gentle species of farmers and artists, had been worked to death for generations. When the human ships appeared in orbit, the survivors could not believe it. General Lee landed personally. He walked through the camps, looking at the hollow faces of people who had given up hope long ago. "Who are you?" an elderly asked. His body was bent from decades of hard labor. His eyes held no light. "We are humans," said gently. "We came to free you." "Free us?" the old laughed weakly. "Nobody frees anyone in this galaxy. There is only the strong and the weak." "Then we will change that." The liberation of Prime sent shockwaves through the galaxy. The humans did not conquer. They did not enslave. They did not demand tribute. They gave food. They gave medicine. They gave hope. More species began to reach out. Former subjects offered to fight alongside humanity. Refugees flocked to human ships, desperate to escape their oppressors. What had begun as a war of revenge was becoming something else, a revolution. Doctor arrived at the front with a new invention. Admiral met him in the hangar of the Eternal Soul, curious about what the scientist had brought. "It's called a dampening field generator," explained, showing a device the size of a coffin. "When activated, it shuts down all power systems within a 50-kilometer radius. Ships, weapons, life support, everything. That would kill everyone aboard the affected vessels." "Only if we leave it running," shook his head. "We turn it on for 30 seconds, just long enough to disable their ships. Then we turn it off and board them, capture instead of destroy." Frowned. "Why would I want to capture ships?" Because we are not monsters, met the Admiral's eyes firmly. I know what they did to us. I lost family on Nu 2, but if we burn every world, if we kill every soldier, how are we different from them? Was silent for a long moment. He thought about his daughter. He thought about the school where she taught. He thought about the children who had trusted her to keep them safe. He wanted to burn everything. He wanted them to suffer as humanity had suffered. The rage was always there, just below the surface, waiting for a chance to break free. But then he thought about the survivors. He thought about the refugees on his ships. He thought about the children who looked at human soldiers like they were heroes. We give them one chance, said finally. One chance to surrender. If they take it, we show mercy. If they refuse, then we do what we must, agreed. But at least we tried. The human fleet advanced toward Prime. Behind them, a coalition was forming. They had sent 30 ships to join the campaign. 6 other species had pledged support. Even some subjects had risen up against their masters. The galaxy was changing. For the first time in 3,000 years, the Dominion was losing. And in the Council Station, now empty of half its members, High Arbiter sat alone in the dark. His power was gone. His allies had abandoned him. His bribery had been exposed to the entire galaxy. He had spent centuries building his empire. He had crushed rebellions and silenced dissent. He had believed himself untouchable. Now he understood the truth. He had underestimated humanity. He had seen a young species new to the stars and assumed they were weak. He was about to pay for that mistake. Prime was visible on every screen aboard the Eternal Soul. It was a massive world, dark and cold, covered in factories and fortresses. For 3,000 years it had been the heart of the Dominion. From this world they had launched their campaigns of conquest. On this world they had built their empire. Today that empire would fall. Admiral stood on the bridge watching the planet grow larger. Around him, the largest armada humanity had ever assembled waited for his command. 200 human warships, 50 carriers, thousands of fighters, and beside them, ships from 7 other species who had joined the coalition. Sir, Captain Park reported from the Defiance, enemy fleet detected. Over 500 vessels forming defensive formation around the planet. 500, allowed himself a small smile. They gathered everything they have left. Warlord commands their fleet. He was responsible for the new attack. He's broadcasting a message. Put it through. His face filled the screen. He was the largest had ever seen, with scars covering his skin and rage burning in his eyes. His voice rumbled like thunder. Turn back, primitives. This is where your species dies. You have won lucky victories against our weakest forces. Now you face the full might of the Dominion. There will be no mercy. There will be no surrender. Every human will be hunted down and destroyed. Your worlds will burn. Your children will scream. And when it is over, your species will be nothing but a bad memory. The message ended. The bridge was silent. Admiral pressed the communication button. His response was a single sentence. I'm going to find you personally. Then he gave the order. All ships advance. Today we end this. The 2 fleets crashed together in the largest battle the galaxy had ever seen. 500 warships against 250 coalition vessels. The odds favored the Dominion by 2 to 1. But numbers were not everything. Human ships moved in patterns that prediction. They jumped and vanished and reappeared, striking from angles that should have been impossible. The coalition forces supported them perfectly, plugging gaps and covering flanks. They fought with desperation. They knew this was their last stand. If they lost here, their empire was finished. Commanded from his massive flagship, the Crusher, screaming orders at his captains. Close the distance. Their tricks won't work in close combat. Overwhelm them. They charged forward. It was the same strategy they had used for 3,000 years. Whenever they faced a clever enemy, they simply threw more ships at the problem. It had always worked before. Captain Park watched them come. Her tactical display showed the enemy fleet converging on the Coalition center, exactly as planned. "Now," she said calmly. From behind the Coalition fleet, something emerged. The shadow, Doctor's masterpiece, had been hiding in the darkness of space. It was completely invisible to sensors. Nobody had known it was there until it opened fire. The Shadow's weapons were unlike anything the galaxy had seen. Beams of energy that passed through shields, missiles that could not be intercepted. In 30 seconds, it destroyed 12 warships without taking a single hit. Panic spread through the fleet. They could not see what was attacking them. They could not fight something invisible. Some ships began to retreat. Others fired wildly at nothing. "Hold the line," roared. "It is one ship. Focus fire on the human fleet." But the Coalition was not waiting. Admiral led the charge personally, his flagship plowing through the formation. Human ships followed, supported by cruisers and vessels from a dozen species. The line collapsed. In orbit above Prime, the battle was already over for all practical purposes. Half the Dominion fleet was destroyed. The other half was either fleeing or surrendering, but Warlord refused to give up. His flagship, the Crusher, still fought. It was the largest warship in the sector, bristling with weapons. Even damaged, it was deadly. "Sir," Captain Park reported, "the Crusher is heading for the planet's surface. They're going to land and fortify." "No," replied. "They're not. General Lee, begin your assault." The Marine transports had been waiting. While the space battle raged, they had maneuvered into position. Now they launched toward the Crusher like a swarm of deadly insects. General Lee was first through the breach. His power armor absorbed the impact of landing, and he immediately began firing. Warriors rushed to defend their ship. They were huge, fierce, and determined. They were also outnumbered and outmatched. Human Marines flooded the corridors. They had trained for this moment. They had studied tactics, ship layouts, psychology. They knew where the defenders would be and how they would fight. More importantly, they remembered the schools. They remembered the hospitals. They remembered the families. General Lee fought his way toward the bridge. A commander tried to stop him, swinging a massive blade. Lee dodged, rolled, and came up shooting. The commander fell. Another warrior attacked from behind. Lee spun, blocked the strike with his armored forearm, and drove his knife into the warrior's throat. "Keep moving," he ordered his troops. "The bridge is ahead." The door to the bridge was locked and reinforced. Lee planted charges and stepped back. The explosion tore the door apart. Inside, Warlord waited. He was massive, even by standards. His armor was thick and from 100 battles. In his hand, he held a blade that had killed countless enemies. "So," he said, looking at Lee, "you are the human who leads their soldiers. You are smaller than I expected." "Size isn't everything," Lee replied, raising his weapon. Laughed. "Your weapons cannot penetrate my armor. Your strength cannot match mine. You are prey. You have always been prey. The only reason your species survived this long is because we had not noticed you." "We noticed you," Lee advanced slowly. "We noticed when you burned our worlds. We noticed when you killed our children. We noticed when you laughed while doing it. And now you will die noticing," charged. He was fast for his size. His blade swept through the air in a deadly arc. Lee dove to the side, feeling the blade pass inches from his head. He fired twice. The shots bounced off his armor. "Told you," growled, advancing again. Lee retreated, thinking quickly. His weapons could not penetrate the armor. His strength could not match this. In a straight fight, he would lose. So he would not fight straight. He threw a flash grenade. The light blinded for a precious second. Lee moved faster than the could track. He slid under a swing, came up behind, and drove his knife into the gap between helmet and armor. The blade sank deep. Staggered, he reached back, trying to grab Lee, but the human was already gone. Blood poured from the wound. The massive fell to his knees. "Impossible," he gasped. "You are prey, you cannot defeat warriors." Lee stood over him. His face showed no triumph, no pleasure, only cold determination. "We are not prey," he said quietly. "We are the thing that hunts in the dark." Tried to speak again, but his voice failed. The warlord who had ordered the deaths of 100 million humans died on the floor of his own ship, defeated by a species he had dismissed as primitive. With dead and the fleet destroyed, the forces surrendered. The Dominion, which had terrorized the galaxy for 3,000 years, fell in a single day. Admiral watched from the Eternal Soul as human soldiers landed on Prime. There was no resistance. The ordinary citizens had not supported the war. They had been victims of their own military as much as anyone else. He thought about ordering the fleet to bombard the planet, to wipe out the species that had killed his daughter, to ensure they could never threaten anyone again. His hand hovered over the control. Then he remembered what it said. If we burn every world, how are we different from them? He lowered his hand. "General Lee," he said into the communicator, "secure the planet, arrest the military leadership, but protect the civilians. We are not here to destroy, we are here to end the Dominion." "Understood, sir." Closed his eyes. His daughter was still dead. The children of Nu were still gone. Nothing could bring them back. But he could choose what came next, and he chose to be better than the enemies who had taken everything from him. It was the hardest choice he had ever made.